if the world that I dream of in my head, where there's no racism or things are more equal, etc., was presented to me tomorrow and it started being real tomorrow, what would me living in that world look like? Like, what morals would I have? What movements would I uphold? What politics would I have? How would I be able to be part of that world? And generally speaking, at that time, I felt like even if it existed, I wouldn't have a place because I would have nothing to contribute other than my words. And that to me, I was like, okay, that was a wake up call. I was like, okay, well, I need to build the skills. I need to build the knowledge. I need to build something that can bring that world out because that's what most of us have to do. We have to stop talking and actually start building the world that we say we want to see. Otherwise, it's never going to come.
We are represented. We are represented. We are represented.
Welcome to Represented, the podcast. I'm Aniki Shuru, racial equity coach for online business owners who want to be intentionally inclusive by building a business that is racially equitable. I created this podcast to normalize a conversation around racial inclusion so that fear is no longer the barrier that gets in the way of doing this work. This isn't about perfection, it's about progress. Whether you're taking your first steps or you're well-versed in the journey towards racial equity, this space is for you. So welcome home, friend. Let's get started.
From coast to coast, around the globe, we are represented.
I am so inspired by the conversation I've had with Rumbiie. She's somebody I've known for quite a number of years. This is not our first conversation. In fact, this is our second conversation. I'm deeply inspired by people who see a problem and they do not dwell on complaining about the problem, but they go about the business of finding a solution to that problem. And that is what Rumbiie has done beautifully with her company, her beauty company, to address the gap when it comes to makeup that is able to be used by people who have darker skin tones. That is something that a lot of migrants of color experience when they move from their birth country and to a country where they are no longer the majority and they begin to deal with things that they perhaps didn't deal with growing up. Hair, makeup, clothing, body shape, all of those things. And I love the work that Rumbiie is doing. This conversation has been so uplifting. And in fact, many times I was just speechless. I was like, whoa, say that again, or I just need to sit with what you've said and just kind of let that sink in. But here is Rumbie's bio before we get into our interview. Rumbidzai Tamai is a Zimbabwean-born, Australian-raised makeup artist with over 11 years of experience in beauty and education. She is the founder of AnakaGlam, an award-winning brand that is building itself on providing inclusive makeup products, services, and transformative masterclasses. Beyond beauty, Rumbiie is a respected mental health speaker and advocate, drawing on her work in peer education to inspire confidence, resilience, and community healing. Without further ado, here is my friend, Rumbidzai Tamai. Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Represented Podcast. Welcome, Rumbiie. I am so happy to talk to you today, and especially because we get to talk about beauty for us. How about that?
Yes, I'm so excited to be here. Hello.
We last connected interview style about 4 years ago when we were talking about you launching your beauty products. And it's been 4 years, obviously. There's a lot that's happened, and I'm going to link to that past conversation. It was a series I was doing called Migrant Women of Color Rising. and yours was on Heel and Hassle. I still remember that title, which I absolutely loved. And this conversation is kind of like a continuation from there, a bit of a recap. But for those of you who want to know more about Rumbi, I highly, highly suggest in the show notes, go back to that original conversation. It was on IGTV when we had IGTV back then. It's still on there on my profile on Instagram. And watch it and get to know a little bit more about Rumbi's backstory. And I just want to dive in straight into our conversation today, Rumbi. There's a statement that you made on your website, and I was reading through that when I was doing my research for our conversation today. And that statement says that I'm someone who has spent a lifetime learning how to take up space in a world that wasn't always built with me in mind. Please unpack that for us.
Oh, I was thinking when you said that, I was like, what statement did I make? Um, I think that a lot of the times when people like myself, particularly a woman who's Black, when we talk about, trying to navigate ourselves in a world that's not created for us, right? It sounds like we're making it all up. Sounds like it's something that we're just making up as an excuse for why we couldn't achieve something, why we didn't fit in, or something that happened that we misconstrued. But the reality is, in everything that we are as a Black person, I'll only speak for myself, not to
Yeah.
make it as if that's everybody's experience. In everything that we are, you almost always find something that's not there or not quite fitting or not quite right simply because you're Black. So for me, it comes from things like hair, right? Whether it was services, whether it was products, whether it was when I moved to Australia trying to get my hair done, it became this honestly like heavy thing to think about. It's just stressful
Absolutely.
experience
Yeah.
to think about simply because it wasn't there for us, right? And then when it came to makeup, I picked up makeup at 15, 16 years old after I moved to Australia. It was just something that I saw all the girls at my school doing. And I came from a background, I come from Zimbabwe. So I came from a background where there was no makeup in schools up
Correct.
until you finish, up until you go to university. I come to Australia, I see the independence and the freedom of being able to do your hair however you want to, being able to wear your makeup to school. And I was like, oh my God, yes, finally, I can do something that I like. I can do something that I enjoy.
Yes.
I go to Priceline, no makeup for me. Okay,
Mhm.
cool. I go to Woolies, no makeup for me. I go to every pharmacy, no makeup for me. And all of a sudden, this little small thing that I want to get to, like a hobby and interest, I can no longer do so. Not because the product hasn't been created, but simply because it has not been created in my color, in my shade.
That's right.
So
Yeah.
well, for people that don't have those experiences, it might be difficult to understand. But for those of us who have grown up othered or on the other side of what you should be, we know what it feels like to constantly bargain and fight just to have simple pleasures in life. So that's what I meant with that statement. I'm also much darker. So even growing up, when you had shades, they were never my tone. They were not shades that would fit my tone. I've also mostly grown up as a plus size woman. So even that as well, like you never saw plus size women on TV being celebrated for their beauty until maybe about 4 years ago. And even when that came, it came with so much war, it
Yeah.
came with so much politics. And even now, most of the people that represented that are taking it back. So sadly for me, I know what it feels like to grow up on the other side of what's acceptable, what's beautiful, and what should be celebrated. So that's what I meant with that.
Oh, Rumbi, you brought up so much. You brought up, hair, you brought up skin tone, body shape, and that is something. I think that unites us all as
Mhm.
migrants when we move from our countries of birth to a different place where we are not seeing that representation. I remember when I first came here 25 years ago, the big thing for me, hair hadn't yet become a thing because I came with braids. So
Mm.
kind of sorted in that regard, but 3 months later, I would realize what the issue with hair would be for me. Uh, it was body size. A
Mm.
lot of people here were very petite, or if I don't, if not petite, were just not as curvy as we are as African women. And so trying to find jeans that I could wear that felt good to wear and not feel like I was exposing parts of my body that just made me feel not good about myself. It was difficult, and I started viewing myself as what's wrong with me? Why am I shaped this way? Why do I have curves here? And majority of my friends, who a lot of them were from Asian countries, that's another thing. You come to Australia, you think that majority of the people you might meet in uni or in college are Aussie, but it's so multicultural. You're meeting people from other parts of the world, and for me particularly, it was people from Asia.
Mm.
And as you can imagine, they're very, petite. A lot of them, anyways, that I was in school with were petite. And so I just felt like the giant in the group who had different hair, who had clothes that I just didn't feel comfortable in.
Mhm.
And how did you deal with that? Because I was 19, 20.
Yeah.
You're 15, 16. How did you deal with that?
It's so I've never actually thought about that. I've never thought about how did I deal with it because like you're saying, I was only 14 and 15. I don't even think at that time I understood the politics or social structure
Yeah.
behind why I felt the way that I felt. But in all honesty, like on one part, I'm a very much of a person who if something is not there for me, I'm going to figure out a way to do it for myself, right? Because I'm a firstborn. And if you know anything about being a firstborn in a Black family or in most families in
Oh
general,
gosh.
you learn to be independent. So, learned to do hair at 15. I actually started my first business at 15. So, on one side, it opened up my creative side where I could do these things by myself. But in all honesty, on the other side, it created this shell where I was only confident around a certain group of people. And then in to the rest of the world, I wasn't as confident because it's one thing to be dealt with that once, but then if that's like your every single day reality and that's the messaging you're continuously hearing, generally speaking, my confidence vanished. It completely started dwindling. And by the time that I even had trying to then accept myself into the world, trying to accept my skills into the world, trying to look for jobs, that confidence was gone. It was not there. And you could tell it's just obviously when you're younger, you think it's normal until you grow up and you're like, hang on, now I actually have to fight to bring back that confidence, to reaccept to myself that I'm beautiful. I may not be that version of beautiful, but I am. Or I can own spaces. You know, I can walk into a space and accept myself. It's only now in my late 20s when it started coming back. But I think for a very long time, my confidence was just, it was gone. So, yeah, I dealt with it in a creative way, but also on the other side, just creating a shell where I was only confident in certain spaces and nowhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Confident in certain places, but not in other spaces. Did you find comfort in spaces where you felt you belonged, like there were others like you? And were the spaces where you didn't feel comfortable was where you were perhaps the only one of your kind, so to speak?
Absolutely. Yeah. I found confidence on Tumblr. So I was actually on Tumblr from about 16. And that's why conversations like this, and I hope other people that are listening can pick these things up as well. to why it's very dangerous for a 16-year-old or a young person to only find confidence in online spaces because that's where they're represented. But in their reality, in their every single day life, they're not feeling confident. I was lucky and also in many ways unlucky that the time that I grew up, there was a popular space called Tumblr, which was the Instagram of back in the day, right? So I could post my pictures on Tumblr and then, connect with other people that had similar interests as I did, people that were interested in makeup, in clothing, in hair. And that's where I learned to get my confidence from. But then everywhere else, it was pretty much performed. And then obviously you're confident around your friends because your friends will they will validate that, right? But that
Mhm.
also means that for me, I more likely than not hung out with people that looked like me, had the same interests as me, and genuinely never ventured out because that was just not a thing anymore.
Mm, mm. And Rumbi, how then did you get into mental health advocacy? And the reason why I bring that up is because October is Mental Health Awareness Month. And I know this is an area that you are a huge ambassador for. How did you step into this space?
It wasn't, I wish my story into stepping into it was more rosy and just, oh, I was just passionate. But that's not the case for me. So, like I said, moving here, it came with a certain isolation. And I know when people speak about this, it sounds like we're not grateful, but I am. I'm very grateful to have had parents that were able to move us to a different country and give me that experience. But this experience has come with other things for me. And what it came with was a loss of confidence very early on before I could build my self esteem. One, two, isolation from what was natural to me, right? And also, three, just years spent in feeling very different and just not feeling like I had any identity at all. Take that and partner that up with my own childhood traumas, my own personal experiences growing up. I actually ended up quite depressed in 2017. And post 2017, I actually ended up being quite suicidal. And I ended up having several attempts and relapse attempts of, yeah, suicidality. And I guess for me, it goes back to this little personality trait that I have, where if there's something there that's quite scary for me or that feels uncertain for me, I take it apart. I'm not I am fearful, but I get out of my fear at some point and I don't mind taking something apart. So when I was confronted by this big thing and this big label of depression, and couldn't find a Shona word for it, couldn't find a Ndebele word for it, couldn't really find anyone who was, again, like me, talking about it, talking about how to navigate it, talking about how to rebuild after going through a mental breakdown. I guess, in many ways thought, you know what, I'm going to figure it out on my own again. So I spoke about it on my social media. And I remember by the end of the week of me sharing that post, I had hundreds of messages on Instagram, on Facebook, of people, and even people much older than me, people that were in their 40s, people that were friends with my parents, saying to me, thank you so much for talking about this. I've experienced this, or, I know so and so who has gone through the same thing. And to me, I felt like, again, why is it that as Black people, we have so many experiences and very little language around the experiences that we have? And because of that, I guess it developed into its own thing year after year.
Yeah.
At some point, I chose that I didn't want to go through the route of talking online anymore because I felt like it's not structured. So it's a bit difficult to do it well or to do it right,
Yeah.
in my opinion. And I decided that I wanted to work in a lived experience role. And that's pretty much what I've been doing for the past 4 years now. So that's how I got into it.
Wow. Oh, mental health, and I know we spoke about that the first time we had our interview,
Mm.
that it's such a taboo thing for us as Africans. Mental health is something that's treated as you don't talk about it. That's for the crazy people. And, we kind of live separate from that. And then there's the aspect of faith and religion and God that, pray and everything will be okay. And so you're right to say that we don't have language. We also don't have support structures
Yeah.
around it. It's very much shunned and looked down upon. When you think of your time here in Australia, when you think of the things that you've navigated and even the stories of the people who have opened up to you and the work that you do advocating for mental health, what support structures do you see missing for migrants of color that you wish were there?
I think for me now, again, that I've matured, I suppose, a little bit more, and also have had the privilege now to work in a lived experience space. It's a lot of things. I call it an ecosystem of wellness.
Okay.
And I think I'll break it down into three things, right? That I think are really important to most people's wellness. Number one, physical environments. That's having spaces where you can fit in, spaces where you can, I guess, mirror who you are, whether it's your interests or people that you can hang out with, you can have interests with and hobbies with, right? We don't have a lot of that. If you think about a lot of the spaces that we meet as Africans, right? And I'll use Perth as an example. We have a few events here and there every single year. There's not a lot of structured things. So if I'm 33 now. If I thought about, oh, let me find a book club where I can go and join a book club with Black girls or people of color for just a year, because this year I'm interested in books. I don't actually know of one in Perth. I know of other ones in other cities that I'm a part of, right, online, but I don't know one in Perth. If I decided I wanted to play netball, again, I don't actually know of one in specifically for netball. Maybe it's there, I just haven't come across it. So even little things like that, that's not there. If I thought about physical spaces where if I'm not feeling well, I can go and instead of just going to get medication, I can get some kind of assistance, whether it's a group, whether it's a meetup. There's not a lot of that.
Yeah.
That as well. Whether I'm aware of them or they're there and I'm just not, but I don't know of any in Perth. So even that in itself, that type of environment where it's
Mhm.
isolating, you're only coming out when you have to be dressed up, have enough money to put fuel, have enough money to wear an outfit. That in itself is problematic. And that's not just an African issue, that's also an Australian issue because that's usually what our social life is set up like. So that's the physical aspect of it. If you also think about the fact that in the spaces that we work in, we're constantly performing outside of ourselves. We literally have to switch off a part of our brain to go, right, you don't work in this environment. Let me put on what's acceptable by the environment that I'm in. That's also an issue that leads to not being well for most people, right? Might come with its own perks, like you get paid for it, so it's not that big of a deal sometimes. But realistically, still is a big of a deal. When it comes to things like spirituality, and I know a lot of people might be uncomfortable with this conversation. I believe in God. I believe in Jesus. However, for a bigger part of my life, I've always wondered why everything that is spiritual that was attached to my people has always been demonic, unacceptable, without me even having my own time or my own education or my own experience to see whether it is demonic or not and decide for myself. It was just decided, right? I personally think that is a huge, huge part to what contributes to the lack of wellness and lack of identity for Africans. Because for me, it's like if I can't decode that part of my life, there's so many other areas that I'm unable to understand because I'm missing that knowledge. But not everybody attaches themselves to that, but that's just my view. So even with that as well, I look at how now, especially in mental health, right? We're starting to try and understand the indigenous ways of understanding mental wellness. We're starting to take some of the definitions from them and apply them to the Western ways of looking at mental wellness, right? The reason why that's so important is because if you don't, that's a whole area of identity that you're erasing from people, and that causes disease at some point. So spiritually, that's that. And then obviously when it comes to yourself as a person, there's things like feeling like you fit into a place, things like eating what works well for your body and for yourself, which we don't get. We do get food and good food, but you also don't also get what has worked for your people, if that makes sense. So for me, those are the things that are lacking. And because those three things are lacking, it's then difficult to have structures like programs, organizations, or, what's this thing called? Sorry, the word's going out of my head. Rehabilitation services
Yes.
that actually work for our people. And we're kind of left going to other people who have created that for themselves and it works for them, but it doesn't really work for us.
Mm-hmm.
I know that was a very long-winded answer, but for me, that's sort of how I look at systems in those three aspects. And I think that is what's lacking for us, especially here in Australia.
Oh, you have broken that down so well, Rumbi.
Thank you.
And you've even given me illustration and language that perhaps I hadn't quite put my finger on. The workplace aspect, that one I get totally, but the whole, spirituality side of things, I have a glimpse of that and an understanding of that. I mean, I'm a born again Christian. I believe in Jesus. And so that part of my faith is solid, but there's also what you've brought up about, how we did our own worship, that has been made to how it's depicted
Yeah.
and how it's been narrated.
Yeah.
And the darkness and the demonizing and all of that is really, really interesting and something that hasn't really been touched on. That I thought was just wow, because it is part of identity and it's part of almost turning away from or not addressing something that is part of who you are. And you said that is something you think about. We don't all, but that is something that you particularly think of and dwell on. And I think this is where we are called to step up.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what I love about you and what you've been able to accomplish and do. Going back to that 14, 15-year-old girl who's arrived in Australia from Zimbabwe, you've been thrusted into a environment that is something you've never been a part of before. You are a minority, and you've come from a country where you were a majority in terms of your race, and identity. And now you're trying to fit in. And this whole makeup situation, how people dress, hair, but you took matters into your own hands and you looked for a way to bring that to yourself. You learned how to braid hair. You're a doer. And I feel like we need doers. We need people who are creating those sporting clubs. We need those people who are creating those recreational clubs where people can go and find their own and be in community in that way, in that sense. And so, Rumbi, what is it about the role of beauty makeup that helps to shape self-esteem? Because it does something.
It does. It does. I think this is also part of why I brought in the side of spirituality, identity, and the idea of how you feel about yourself as an individual, right? For me, when I sit in front of my mirror, it's my opportunity to talk to myself, right? To really study my features. If you think about it, the world is so busy. Majority of us are so busy. You can actually go for lengths of time without really looking at yourself. I remember one time when I still wasn't well and I was really struggling with depression. And it had been a long time since I'd actually sat in front of a mirror and really looked at myself. And I remember when I finally did, and my skin was so bad. I have psoriasis. So when I'm stressed out, when I'm depressed, one of the easy ways to tell that it's now becoming an issue is inflammation, right? And that will show up on my skin. So for the first time, I really sat down and I looked at myself. My hair was falling apart, my edges were gone. I had
Hmm.
psoriasis. And I remember like looking at myself and just going, whoa, what am I doing? Like, what is it that I'm actually doing to myself that's creating this to show up on my face? And I recall after that, I changed my diet. I changed, I stripped myself off all the products that I was using at the time. I started using herbs. For me to find out that I could use herbs, I went online. I did research. I tried to find out what Africans used to use for their faces, for their skin, what worked for them. You probably will not find a lot of things other than literature from Ethiopians and
Yes.
other people like that, right? But I went in, I found those things, I started using that. I actually went and borrowed a lot of what I use for my face and my hair from Indian culture because that's what was documented. That's what was there. And after I started doing that, you can see now my skin looks great.
Yeah.
Obviously stress and all that stuff, that's still there. But now I know that if psoriasis shows up on my face, it's because I'm stressed out. That means I can't deal with the psoriasis until I deal with the stress, right? So what I'm trying to say is for me, it's not just as simple as beauty. It's not just I want to look nice. It's not just I want to look pretty. That's a huge element of it. And I will not downplay that. But what it is for me is it's ritual. It's taking care of yourself. It's what I get to enjoy as a woman, as one of the most beautiful pleasures that I can simply have available to me right in front of me. Back in the days, you could wake up, you could go to your garden, you pick your herbs, whatever, whatever. You use those to beautify yourself, right? Now I have to go to a shop. No
Mhm.
problem, that's fine. But if I'm going to work as much as I do, I
Yeah.
want to be able to walk into a store and buy things, come back home, sit in front of my mirror and make myself feel good and enjoy those simple pleasures of me working that much. So for me, beauty is important because it's part of our self-care. It's how we take care of ourselves as women, as men as well, and as people in general. It's how we honor ourselves. It's how we honor this body that we're currently in. It's how we celebrate it. I love makeup because it makes me feel good. I feel amazing about myself when I step out and my hair is done in a certain way creatively. I'm wearing an outfit that makes me feel good. My makeup is done. It's not necessarily about the amount of makeup that I do or the type of makeup. It's that in my day, I had an hour or 30 minutes to sit myself down,
Yeah.
make everything else still and unimportant, and just tend to myself. And for me, that's what it is. That's why I do the master classes because what I'm teaching people is you can get to have this at home for 2 hours. You can get to just sit, put music on, enjoy a glass of wine or water, whatever it is that you like, whatever it is that you fancy. Sit in front of the mirror, talk to yourself, groom yourself, make yourself feel good. And then when you're done, present yourself to the world if that's what you're doing, or just sit back and enjoy the company of yourself at your home. So for me, beauty is therapeutic, it's ritual, it's honoring, it's celebratory, and that's the way that it's always been. It's only now that not only now, it's always been that way, but now it's much more because of social media and the way that we're living our lives. We've made it so political that we tell people what to wear, we tell people how to look, how to do their hair. We have all
Yeah.
these stipulations around who should be celebrated and who's not. And it's like, if we go back to the essence of the fact that you're a human being and you were molded, most of us believe in the fact that God molded us.
Yes.
That means that every single type, every single way of beauty should be celebrated. There should be no argument around that. So, yeah, I could talk about this forever. So
And
I'll stop now.
I want you to dive into that because I think the concept of beauty, the concept of makeup
Mhm.
has really been distorted. I feel so much so for the upcoming generation, particularly Gen Alpha. I have a Gen Alpha in my household, and she's so into makeup. I was telling her about you and your work. But I'm a woman who doesn't wear makeup. I do not wear makeup. I put on lipstick. I love that. And it's because I grew up in a home where my mother never wore makeup. If you
Mhm.
know, traditionally growing up in an African home, people generally of that generation did not wear makeup. And as you were saying, even in school, we didn't wear makeup in school. In fact, you would get in trouble. You would be
Yeah.
suspended or expelled
Yeah.
if you wore makeup. But it wasn't accessible to us even. We didn't look at it as kids or students and go like, oh, I want to wear makeup.
Mhm.
It's not what gave us our self-worth,
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
to speak. But
Yeah.
now I feel with this generation, it's so commodified, it's been commodified so much.
Mhm.
In that, this is how you put on makeup, or like it's been made to be a thing that you do to look good, to look prettier.
Yeah.
And I love what you're teaching here and with your master class is that it's so much more than that. Yes, that's an aspect of it, but this is about tending to yourself. This is about taking care of you, putting everything aside and taking care of you, getting to know yourself, your skin, what's good for you, what's healthy for you, and what keeps you going when you have, spent so much time working or whatever it is that you're doing, tending to yourself.
Yeah.
That is such a key education. That is a very huge missing piece when it comes to this whole makeup industry.
Hmm. It truly is. And like again, the only way that I guess the way that the makeup industry has worked in a very long time is that if I tell you that you're not enough, if I tell you that you don't look great until you look like this, then sure, that's going to drive people to buy. And it's true, a lot of the times our insecurities push us to spend as much as we do, right? If you tell women that you don't look nice unless you're wearing a wig, then yeah, all of us are going to start wearing wigs. Therefore, that makes money. But I think for me, and maybe I hope that I guess part of me pouring myself into Anaka is to see in the end if this is a possibility for instead of people to be driven by insecurity, for people to be driven by love, for people to be driven by confidence or trying to be confident, trying to build your self esteem. Makeup is a tool. And whether you have makeup or you don't have makeup, it shouldn't change how you feel about yourself. It might change the boost in your step because that's just normal, right? You walk differently when you're on flat shoes and when you're in high heels. That's just normal, right? But it shouldn't change the way that you feel about yourself, the fact that you feel confident in either. And for me, that's why even with our sessions, we have somebody teaching about skin before we go into makeup because I want women to remember we're not doing it to hide our skin. We're doing it because we love our skin. We love ourselves so much that I'm like, yeah, I want to wear lipstick because I like lipstick. I like red lipstick. I'm not doing it to look like so and so. I'm doing it because that's how I want to present myself. And whether I want to present myself artistically with green eyeshadow or I want to just be brightened and wear a pink lipstick or a red lipstick, that's what it should be versus it being driven by insecurities. And I think sadly, like you said, we've targeted younger people
Yeah.
who feel like the only way that they can fit in is if they look a certain way. The only way that they can get, and sadly now with Instagram and TikTok, the only way that they can get those likes or that following is if they present themselves this way. So we're not pushing or empowering people to be individuals through their makeup as a tool. We're wanting them to look like a certain person. Whereas for me, the reason why we teach and I do the master classes is for somebody to find their style. I want you to walk out with your style. I will teach you the basics, right? But I'm teaching you so that you can walk out and be like, I actually don't like putting concealer, so I'm not going to do concealer. I just like the foundation. Actually, I like my skin. I like how it looks. I'm just going to do mascara and lipstick because it's your style. It's meant to be an expression of how you want to present yourself in the world versus how you want to look or fit in with somebody else.
I love that. I love that so much. And so, how did you, s- well, you saw the gap. The gap is there between not having makeup for our skin tone,
Mhm.
seeing that gap, how did you move from seeing the gap to creating the makeup? Because it's one thing to see the gap, which we all do as migrants of color, and we're seeing things that we don't have access to. But it's quite another to go ahead and create something and go like, you know what, there's a gap here, and I'm going to investigate and I'm going to do the heavy lifting of bringing
Mhm.
something into the market. Where do you
Mhm.
even begin?
I think again, it's just who I am. It's I think that's just a personality trait that I just have. I'm one of those people that I guess annoying in the sense that I make everything is deep for me. Everything is super deep for me and everything is important for me. And when something is important for me, I'm like a dog with a bone. I don't let it go until I figure it out.
Yeah.
And for me, I've always been, I would like to say that I'm a very political person in many ways. And what makes me do this is because for me, this is more political than anything else. It's a statement to say it shouldn't be so difficult. Like, if you can't see race and marginalization in anything else, here's what's meant to be a fun area that we're all meant to enjoy and get along, where this is still being pointed out. Because everything else for me would be, I guess, too difficult to tackle. So this was the easiest place to be able to tackle. But I think I also got sick and tired of talking.
Mhm.
You would know that for a very long time, I think post George Floyd, I was very vocal on social issues and, posting about it, talking about it. And I remember I think it was like maybe a year or 2 years ago, when majority of the organizations, businesses, and all of that were very pro-Black, and what was that statement that we had? Black Lives Matter, right?
Right.
She started taking it back. They were just taking it back, taking it back, taking it back. Majority of the businesses, organizations that were pro DEI, taking that back. And
Yep.
I think it made me realize in that year that anything that is given to you that you don't take part in co-creating, they will take back. And I don't mean they like specific people or anything like that, but it can be taken back. Anything that is given to you that you don't take part in co-creating or in creating, that you don't own, can be taken back just like that. So that year, I think it really emphasized to me that if I cared enough and if I cared enough to see the changes that I think should be in the world, then I have to take part in creating that. Whether I'm going to do that well or I'm not going to do that well, that's up to life and up to how I do it. But I at least want to try. I at least want to show that, look, I may not get it right, but
Yeah.
here's an example of how you can create a brand from the get go, representing everyone. We have a shade for the lightest person that you can think of. We have a shade for the darkest person that you can think of at the moment, right? I'm going to continue to creating more shades to fill in the gaps. But I'm just showing that if I, as a 33-year-old from a migrant family without a big fat bank account, I'm not a millionaire, so I don't have a lot of money to dispose,
Yeah.
with my regular income,
Yeah.
could do this as a start. What about everybody else with $1 billion and resources in their pockets? So for me, that is the push. The push is I'm sick and tired of talking. I want to now get ready, because I guess also a part of me, I asked myself one thing around that time when all of these things were happening, right? I asked myself, fine, if the world that I dream of in my head, where there's no racism or things are more equal, etc., was presented to me tomorrow and
Yeah.
it started being real tomorrow, what would me living in that world look like? Like, what morals would I have? What movements would I uphold? What politics would I have? How would I be able to be part of that world? And generally speaking, at that time, I felt like even if it existed, I wouldn't have a place because I would have nothing to contribute other than my words. And that to me, I was like, okay, that was a wake up call. I was like, okay, well, I need to build the skills. I need to build the knowledge. I need to build something that can bring that world out, because that's what most of us have to do. We have to stop talking and actually start building the world that we say we want to see. Otherwise, it's never going to come.
Oh, That is so powerful. Oh my goodness. Oh, yep.
Yeah, that it was a rude awakening, if I can be honest. It was not a nice awakening. It was a very rude awakening because I realized that it's one thing to be so passionate and to speak as if you can create the world and maintain the world that you're talking about. But it's another thing to build yourself as an individual for that world. And whether it comes or it doesn't come, I feel like I guess I know the word manifestation rubs people off the wrong way sometimes, but what I like about that word is it opens up the mindset that what you dream of, right? You have to be enough of for it to want to come to you as well. So most of us can talk about this world that represents, but fine, the light gets shined upon us, visibility is now there. What is going to be shown? And how is that visibility going to be maintained? Because if we can't maintain it, if there's nothing to be shown, then we go back to the same problem. And in a way, you prove people right. People can then turn around and be like, oh, see, we gave them the opportunity and there was nothing there. We knew what we were talking about all this time around.
Right.
So, yeah, that's why for me, I was like, okay, it's time for me to put my word and what I believe in into something tangible and something that I can be like, this is what it is.
And you have gone ahead and created an incredible range. Talk to me about your beauty range and show
I
me what you have, and maybe we can play a little bit. And
Yes,
in terms of application and all that good stuff, I
yes.
wish I had my own to play with here.
I know. I would definitely send you something. It would have been great if we'd actually done this and you're also trying it out for the first time. So
Yep.
I'll talk you through our range. So we do have 24 shades. Obviously, I don't have the 24 shades here to show. Got a few shades, but you can see the range online. So first things first, what I wanted, like I said, I'm not claiming that our range will fit every single shade, but that's what we're working towards. When you launch a range, you can't launch it with, so many products because obviously it's not financially viable. But that's what I'm working towards. So what I've done is I've done 24 shades, and these 24 shades do represent all the different types of skin tones. Now I'll take you through one of our first shades, which is this one here. This is Mwezi, and Mwezi is the lightest shade. So the same problem that you have for people that are on the darker end of the darker spectrum, you've
Yep.
got it for the people who are on the lighter spectrum. I've learned that from doing makeup, and they typically can't find their shades as well. So I wanted to create something for that, and we've tested this out on somebody who was super light, and it was a great shade. It's called Mwezi. What I wanted to do with our names is I wanted to bring back the conversation around where beauty comes from. So all our names have been borrowed from everywhere that we could think of, everywhere where we could find a word that signifies, means, or validates beauty. I went in and I looked for it, and if it worked, I took it. We've borrowed from indigenous culture, we've borrowed from Indian culture, borrowed from Zimbabwean culture, borrowed Shona and Devele from Nigeria, from Ghana, from different places. And I want that to be echoed throughout the whole entire brand as we go. So one of the lighter shades that we have. This is the darkest shade that we have. It doesn't look so dark because it's blurred out at the moment,
Yep.
but you can see it online. This is called Nyerezi. So Mwezi means moon in Shona, and Nyerezi means star in Shona as well.
Okay.
So yeah,
It's very similar to Swahili because mwezi is moon in Swahili.
yes, yes.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we have a Swahili name as well. I would have a look, but I'm pretty sure we have a Swahili name. And again, it just goes back to the fact that beauty isn't a new thing, right? We're not trying to introduce the world to different types of beauty. We're trying to wake up the world to the fact that no, like you can go back thousands and thousands and decades of years. We already had words for beauty. We already had ways of celebrating
Right.
beauty. It's not new. So yeah. So yeah, these are the other shades that we have. But like I said, we literally have 24 shades. I'll show you. We also have some lipsticks. So we've got eight lipsticks. 8 shades of lipsticks. I don't have all of them with me today because we've pegged stuff up for Brisbane, but this is one of the lipsticks that we have.
Oh,
And we
wow.
also, thank you, we also have a dark one called Betty. The reason why it's actually called a shower Betty, which always makes people laugh because of the meaning of a shower, right? But one of the things that I'm trying to do is to take away the idea, especially in the African community, that, beauty is only reserved for the women who are bad. Because that's been what it's been for the longest of time in the African community. The girls that like makeup, they're super fast. The
Yeah.
women that like makeup, they're bad women. And it's like,
Mm,
it's
mm.
just an interest. So it was my way of like trying to tickle people.
That's
Um,
good.
Also created this setting
Um,
spray. Yeah,
AnakaGlam, yes.
AnakaGlam setting spray. So we actually have two setting sprays. One of the things about all the products that we have is they also have ingredients to take care of the skin. I love makeup, but I love my skin more.
Right.
And the more that I mature as a woman, I don't want to put anything on my face that is going to ruin my skin in the long
That's
run.
it. Yeah.
So the foundations and the setting spray have hyaluronic acid, which is really, really good for hydrating your skin. The foundation has like vitamins, it's got clay, and all of that is good for your skin. Also have I feel like now I'm back on TikTok. I'm like,
Is that a lip gloss?
this is a lip gloss that we have.
Yeah.
So this lip gloss again has vitamins to make sure that so it's still like glossy and everything, but also not glossy while stripping your skin. I don't know if you've ever tried a glossy lip gloss where you put it on and it looks glossy, right? But then by the time it finishes or you take it off, your skin is dry.
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure that's avoided. So this also has properties in it that make sure that it doesn't dry up your skin. So that's pretty much our range. And then also we have brushes.
Oh, yes.
Yes. So we've got a 10-piece brush set, and these brushes only go for $69.99. Now, the idea with Anaka is not to be a cheap brand, but I want to be a financially accessible brand.
Gotcha.
It's one thing to say you have created shades for everyone, right? It's another thing to not do your research to think also if the price point is going to price people out or it's going to price people in. I want to be able to price people in. It's when it comes to makeup and when we talk about the inaccessibility of makeup within the industry in Australia, it's not just about shades, it's about prices. You can walk into Woolies and find a $15 makeup foundation, right? You can find a powder that suits you. So if you don't want to buy the $15 foundation, you can buy the cheaper powder and then go to Mecca, go to the more expensive stores and buy a more expensive foundation. We don't have that liberty. I can't really walk into Priceline majority of the times and find a shade that actually works for me. Now you kind of can sometimes, but that means I can also walk in and be told, oh yeah, we do have the tester, but we don't have the actual shade in store. Also the idea that a lot of the stores that actually, so I live in an area called Yanchep, right, in Perth.
Hmm.
The nearest shopping center for me where I can find products of my shade is 40 minutes away. And there's only two stores that would be able to give me that.
Okay.
If I go to both of them and don't find anything, the nearest shop is about an hour away. People might not think that's important, but it is important. Whereas the regular Australian can go to their Woolies, probably 20 minutes away, and find a shade. If they don't like it in the same mall, they can go to the pharmacy, they can go to reject shop, they can go here and there. At least 3, 4, 5 places that they can go to in their local malls to find products. So for me, that's one of the things that I'm hoping to be able to try and find a way to navigate as a Black owned business because I want my products to be accessible. I don't want to have a range where only a certain number of people, a certain type of people can afford it. So yeah.
100%. Thank you for giving us a little bit of the backstory. And if you're listening and you're wondering what is the name of the beauty products, it is called Anaka and Co. And that will be in the show notes. So please, could you go ahead and do some application and just maybe talk us through, and then we'll bring this to a close with where people can purchase and also just talking about what keeps your business going? What keeps the doors of your business open?
Oh, that's a tough one. Okay, so first things first, I'm gonna go in with my setting spray.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is the setting spray. Like I said before, it's hydrating. So this is really good for your skin. And it just makes sure that your makeup melts and your well, depending on what type of makeup you like. I like soft matte. I don't like fully matte, don't like dried matte. And I also like glowy. So this ensures that I get that.
Okay. So just a light spray all over.
Yes. Yes, just a full little sprays, and it's super refreshing to your skin. I love this.
What does it
Also,
smell like?
oh, it smells, it doesn't have perfume because we wanted to avoid that. So it smells super fresh.
Okay.
Yeah, it smells quite fresh. I really like this. This is what I use all the time. Other than this one, I also love the Murphy one because Murphy and Charlotte Tilbury do the best setting sprays for me. So
Okay.
I like those ones. So I'm going to go in with my foundation, and mine is called Boucle.
Okay. What number is that one? Because I was looking at the
So
number.
this one is 44. So
44.
on the website, what you will find is, and we're still sorting out the website so it reflects them a bit better. But at the moment, what you'll find is next to the number, there's also the name.
Yes.
And then there's a chart that has all the numbers to show you what shades you would be
Yeah, I
buying.
was looking at that to try and figure
Yes.
out what mine is. Yep.
Yes, yeah. I guess really what I'm hoping to do at some point is to have a certain model where you can go in, you can put a picture of yourself,
Oh,
and then that will also help you to do a shade match. I
yes.
guess the thing is, when you are doing these things, sometimes you don't realize how complicated it is to get to those things. So we're still working on it behind scenes.
Absolutely.
But this is the shade that I'm going with, and this is
Yeah.
Boucle. My skin tone is quite warm, but I also have yellow undertone, and I'm also quite dark. So you can tell with like I'll just do
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. My veins are quite green, but I can't actually wear something that's too light. Otherwise, it would just gray me out. So
Okay.
I try to use something that's in between orange, but also sinks in quite well. So I'm going to show you, I'm going to come closer.
Yeah. So are the shades for foundation, is it like yellow, orange? Are those the bases that we
So
work with
it's
or?
warm, cool, and neutral.
Okay, warm.
Yeah, so I'm neutral, right? So I go in between warm and cool. So I've got quite orange, but also yellow. We have a very weird mix sometimes with all our skin tones.
We do,
So
don't
sometimes
we?
you might be super light, but you actually have warm undertones. So if you then go for some that's cool undertone, it then comes off looking a bit funny. And that's something that sometimes when you go into stores, they don't quite explain to you. So you need to be aware. And that's why education is really important when it comes to makeup. I can't tell you how many people have come to me and they give me, my clients, they give me foundations that they bought thinking, oh, this works, it look great. And they go home and they're like, okay, no, this does not work. So you need to know what your undertones are.
Okay.
Yeah.
How does
So
one find what their undertones are?
so you can two things, right? It's always good to go to a makeup artist and do a lesson, right? I know it is an investment, but it's an investment that's good for you because once you know your undertones, they're never going to change. So now you know exactly what to buy. It's like going to a stylist who matches you with colors and all of that stuff.
Okay.
So if you're also going to places like Mecca, I'm not sure of Priceline because I've never done it in Priceline. But Mecca, sometimes if you actually request a lesson and you pay for the lessons, and Mac as well, they will teach you about your undertones.
Okay.
Yeah, but the easiest way to be able to tell what your undertone is to just look at your veins. If your veins pop up more green, then you do have a yellow undertone. If you can rarely see them, then you've got a warmer undertone. but your hands usually just kind of tell you which one it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So I typically use two pumps because, like I said, I like a very soft coverage.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one side of my face done. So you see how it was quite orange, but do you
Yeah.
see how that's well blended now with my
Yeah.
skin? Yeah.
It is beautiful. It is.
Yeah.
Wow. And
So
just
what? Yeah.
and just so glowy, so just smooth.
Yes. It's because of the vitamins in the foundation and also the hyaluronic acid. It
Okay.
hydrates your skin, so it's actually not drying up your skin. Again, this is a preference thing. Some people like to have their makeup super matte. Some
Yeah.
people like it soft. What I wanted though was to have a foundation that gives you the choice so
Mm,
that you're not buying a foundation and then before you even apply powder and everything else, it's already matte. This gives you something that's super close to your skin, and
right.
then from there you can then decide.
You can.
Another thing for me is sometimes I don't want to wear makeup. So if I just want to
Right.
look polished, I don't really want to do the whole eyeshadow, sorry, not eyeshadow, concealer, powder, and
Hmm.
everything. I just wanted to just be a little bit of foundation on my face to
Yeah.
clear my skin. And then once I clear my skin, that's pretty much all I want. So this allows me to do that. I could walk out of the house with this, like this right now.
You could walk
And
out before, okay? You were
thank you.
you look
Thank
so good,
you.
but this has really enhanced it. It just looks juicier and supple. And it what about people who have dry skin? Sorry, not dry skin, oily skin. Because for me, I'm on the other side. I have really dry skin, and
Mhm,
something like that just
mhm.
would work so well on my skin. And that's
Yeah.
why I don't have breakouts or anything like that. I
Yes.
mean, touch wood, because of I have
Yes.
dry skin, so I don't have um breakouts that easily.
Yes.
But somebody who has very, very oily skin, how do they address that with a foundation that perhaps might be a little bit dewy or,
Yeah.
glossy?
So with when you've got oily skin, so that's something that you really can't fully prevent, but you can do certain things to sort of block out the oils or minimize how much oil shows up on top of your skin. So first things first, you want to use the right primers. We don't have primers yet, so you want to use primers that close up the pores a little bit.
Okay.
That way your oils are not coming up that much. But also you can use another version of this that is still on the way
Yeah.
is a mattifying spray instead of the hydrating one. You still want hydration, but you also want to mattify your skin. That way the oils don't show up too much.
Mm,
There's really nothing that you can do to stop your skin from being oily. That's not really more of an esthetician's intervention. That's what you can do. But in terms of makeup, you want to use the right primer. Sometimes that's a blotting powder, which is really good to do underneath before you put the foundation on. So I don't have mine here, but there's one from MAC and ELF that works really, really well. And I use that one for brides because with brides, you want to mattify everything because they're going to be doing a lot of activities, right? So you can use things like that. And also, you can use the right setting spray to prime your skin.
all right.
But this foundation would still be good for that because it is hydrating. So it's not also drying up.
Mhm.
Sometimes when you've got oils, right, if you use everything that's drying, then your face is going to look cakey. And usually what happens is once the oils come out, your makeup actually starts to crack as well. And you don't want that.
No, no, you absolutely do not want
Yeah,
that.
you don't want that. It never looks
Oh
good.
God. I think what we need to do at some point, I don't know when, we need to just get together, have a bit of an event where we
Yes,
come together and we get to do makeup. We get to be in the same space because what you
absolutely.
have, what you've created, you're not
Thank
just
you.
somebody who's talking about the problems, you are creating a solution. And I think I told you that the first time we spoke, I said, you are somebody who is a doer. You're bringing solutions to the table and you're giving people choices. And
Yeah,
that is incredibly powerful. I don't
thank
know,
you.
Rumbi, if you realize what a gift you are and what an inspiration you are and how much courage it takes to do what you're doing. Because it's so easy to just go through life, the daily grind of your 9 to 5, come home, do your thing, and just live life like that until the end. But you're just pushing boundaries. And it's such an inspiration. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you so much for thinking of that gap in the market and creating something to address that gap. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. I think sometimes it's, when you're in, I guess, the person in the mix, it's really hard to see it that way. But one thing that I do have to say to that as well is I think, I have been really, really privileged to meet people like yourself, people like Fatatiza, and many others. I only want to mention one person so I don't forget anyone. But I've met people who, at a time where I didn't see that, because that's the truth. There was genuinely a time in my life where I did not see what anybody else sees. I did not see it like that. And even now, if I'm being completely honest, I still struggle to see that. But because I've had the privilege of being spoken to and having people like yourself speak over my life and, validate that, to me, that's what I mean when I say that we need spaces where we can be seen, because you've continuously given me that opportunity to be seen that way, and when you are validated that way, you become what it is that other people are validating, both when it's good and when it's not good. But you've all given me an opportunity to go, okay, maybe I don't see it yet, but I can try and be what people are seeing, or I can lean on that now until I see it for myself. So I'm beyond, beyond, beyond grateful. And that's why a lot of the times I talk about why young people need people like yourselves, need spaces that can see them far beyond what they're seeing and can mirror that to them, or can say that back to them until they believe it. Because generally speaking, if it wasn't for that, I'm not too ignorant and too proud to say, if it wasn't for that, I would not be where I am today. I'm where I am today because I've had people that saw me and continuously told me what they were seeing. They were not afraid to tell me what they were seeing. They were not afraid to speak it into my life. And because of that, I'm able to continue doing what I'm doing. So I'm beyond grateful for that.
Oh, thank you for those kind words. And so, where can people connect with you? Is there something that you have going on? Is it the master classes? What is it? If somebody's listening and they're like, how can I connect with Rumbiie?
Yeah. So we've just wrapped up our masterclasses. Unfortunately, I'm not sure when this will pop up, but I'll just say it anyway. It doesn't matter. I'm sadly going to have to cancel the rest of the tour. We're just in the process of sorting that out backstage. But people can connect with me online. On Instagram, it's AnakaGlam, or Hey, I'm Rumbiie. I'll give you the details later on. Or you can check us out online as well on our website, www.anakarancore.com.au. The vision for me with Anaka is to build it with a community. I don't know why that's the thing for me, but that's what I really want. And that's why I wanted to do this, launch this with a tour, because I don't think I can get to where I want to get without that. So hopefully next year we will be back again to do the tour. We've already done our launch in Perth, which was really amazing. And I'm so grateful to everyone that came. We did a tour last year, a 3-city tour, and hopefully we'll be able to do another one next year. So yeah.
It will happen. It will
Yeah.
happen, Rumbiie. So talk about
Thank you.
like it is like going to happen, not hopefully.
Thank you.
It's going to happen
It
because
is going to
remember,
happen.
you are a doer. You
Thank
didn't have
you.
a product and now you have products, you
Yes.
know. So
Yes.
it is going to happen. And I cannot wait to see what is birthed out of that, because a lot of times we think, oh, we're just talking about beauty and self-esteem and makeup and health and wellness, but so much more is birthed out of that.
Yes.
And you're the carrier of this. And I cannot wait to just witness your journey over the years
Thank
to
you.
come. So thank you so much for your time today and your glowing, beautiful.
Thank you.
Race over to Anaka and Co. and check out those products and grab them for yourself. They're just absolutely beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And I can't wait to send this to you so you can try it out as well.
Absolutely.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, Annie.
We are represented. We are represented. We are represented.
Thank you so so much for tuning in. Why don't you go ahead and hit that subscribe button and leave a review so this podcast can reach more online business owners, and together we can begin to normalize racial inclusion in the online coaching space. I'd love to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land where this podcast episode was recorded, the Wiradjuri people in central New South Wales, Australia. Music produced in Nairobi, Kenya by Patrick St. P. Mbaru and Kambua Mathu. Vocals by Joanne Matata.